Okay, thank you. With that, I'd like to announce our next presenter. I'm very excited to introduce to you Brian Warwick, who is the Healthcare Product Lead with AWS. Brian will be discussing healthcare in the cloud, the value of the HealthLake to power analytics, and how SnapLogic is helping to drive data integration and automation on HealthLake. With that, I'd like to turn it over to you, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Brian Warwick, as mentioned. So I'm a senior partner solutions architect for healthcare and life sciences here at AWS. And over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to talk about one of our newest services that we launched earlier this year, or late, actually just about 4 months ago. So this is about Amazon HealthLake. And feel free to pop questions over there on the side if you have any as I'm going along. But before we jump into HealthLake, it's important to understand where it sits here at AWS. And so the first thing I want to point out is that HealthLake is an AI ML service. And when we talk about machine learning at AWS, we always talk about it being sort of 3 layers of a stack. So you have your bottom layer down here where you have the ability to run your core frameworks on AWS, for example, TensorFlow, PyTorch, MXNet. But you need to be a machine learning expert to be able to take advantage of those platforms. For folks that are not machine learning experts but want to go build any model, then we have Amazon SageMaker here in the middle. I'm going to be focusing, though, on this top layer, you'll notice. And we have at the top really kind of what we call our AI as a service. And we have a variety of services here from vision, like if you're doing, we have Amazon Recognition. If you're building chatbots, we have Amazon Lex. And in the top right, you'll notice we have 3 healthcare AI ML services. So we have Transcribe Medical for doing medical transcriptions. We have Comprehend Medical to get medical comprehension from unstructured data. And then we have Amazon HealthLake. And that's what I'll be jumping into here in a little bit. 90% of what we build here at Amazon is based on what our customers ask us to build. And that other 10%, we're trying to innovate on their behalf. And so in healthcare, we hear all the time from our customers that, look, there's a ton of data in healthcare. And when you look at all of the different data points that exist across, from clinical notes to claims to observations, I'm sure everybody here on the call that is in healthcare knows that there's a ton of data, and really trying to get it all together, streamline that so you can go forward and build models from that data, or use that information to make better insights on your patient population. It's pretty difficult. And for a lot of our customers that are doing like machine learning work today, you'll spend a lot of time just kind of wrangling that data, trying to get it together in a format that you can then start building models from. So we went out and we built Amazon HealthLake. As I mentioned, HealthLake is a new service. We launched it in July of this year. So going on about 5 months now since it's been live. But it is a purpose-built healthcare data store to store your clinical data. So data, and to be specific here, this is data that's in the FHIR R4 format. And I'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute. But you can bring your data in. Amazon HealthLake will scale for you as you bring that information in. And we make everything fully searchable that you put inside HealthLake. But it is your data. It is your purpose-built healthcare data store. Nobody else can see your data. It is fully HIPAA eligible. But the idea is, as you start to bring this clinical data in, you can then start to do analysis from that information. The other thing is HealthLake has built-in AI ML inside of it that we also make the results of those models fully searchable across the entirety of your Amazon HealthLake. So these are some of the key advantages of HealthLake. For one, I mentioned those built-in models. So to be specific, we have built-in natural language processing to understand the unstructured data that you bring into HealthLake. So in Fire, this will be what's called a document reference resource type. And so you think about like if you have clinical notes that might come in, that would come in, and upon ingestion into HealthLake, it will automatically start that natural language processing to try to get understanding from the context, and then it provides results of those models and appends them to the actual document. And I'm actually going to show that here in a little bit. But also the idea is that by bringing all this data together in one place, it's also going to help streamline building additional models if you choose to use SageMaker, like I just talked about a couple minutes ago, or if you want to build dashboards from that information, or join it to other data that might be part of a data lake you're building in AWS. You know, we have over 130 HIPAA eligible services that we continue to grow. And customers are looking for a way to bring this all together so that you can take advantage of that ever-growing number of services that AWS offers. So you can really start to either get new insights from your data or even build new experiences for patients, your clinicians around or on top of that data. And then because this data is in Fire R4, this makes it very easy to support interacting with third-party applications like SnapLogic, for example, and they'll talk about that here in a little bit. But that's the great thing about Fire, is that once you've aligned on that common data model, it's going to make or eliminates that guesswork of trying to understand, you know, what does a patient demographic resource look like, or medications or allergies. Now, I talked about those built-in models available within HealthLake. So to be very specific, these are the same models that Comprehend Medical have available to it. So what that means is when your unstructured data comes into HealthLake, we start to immediately run those models on that data, and then the results of those models are made searchable across all of HealthLake. So for example, things like ICD-10 codes, medications, an RX norm, also dosage. So if you had a note that were to say, you know, 20 milligrams of a specific medication, HealthLake will associate 20 milligrams with that medication. It also does anatomy. So if there's a reference to like maybe somebody mentioned pain in a right shoulder, it'll mention right shoulder as the anatomy site. It also will do PHI detection. It won't do de-identification, but it will actually flag various documents to say there's potential PHI in this. Now you'll notice in this example here that I'm showing, we have a clinical note that we've brought in, and the patient was 62 years of age, type 2 diabetes, so what was actually found as being a diagnosis. And all of that, the results of those models are actually the JSON that comes back is appended to that document reference resource in HealthLake, and you can actually search across all of that. So what that means is if you start flowing data into HealthLake and those models are running, you can actually search across all of HealthLake to say, I want to see all of my, type 2 diabetes patients based on these model results. Or I want to see where the inferred ICD-10 code was R00.2 for heart palpitations. So, you can't get the idea of how powerful that can really become, not just at the individual patient level, but at a patient population level. And before I continue, when it comes to getting that data in, though, and that's why we're really excited to have SnapLogic here building a solution to help customers get data in. We have partners that are building these solutions to allow you to get data in to Amazon HealthLake from a variety of data sources. And Rich from SnapLogic is going to be showing what they built here in a couple minutes after my presentation here shortly. But again, that data has to be in Fire R4, fast healthcare interoperability resources. Now, with these models, when you start to think about how powerful this can get is you can actually start to assign medical codes to the actual text that's in there. And this is becoming a really common pattern that we're seeing from a lot of our customers right now. Really this desire to kind of align what is the structured EHR clinical data say, as well along with what is the unstructured, trying to get some analysis and results that we can then surface back to the clinicians so they can make a better informed decision, or hopefully expedite, say, for example, creating a note from this information, or really trying to understand the context of the encounter that happened earlier. So again, all of the results of those models, though, are surfaced for you. And HealthLake's not doing any clinical decision support. At the end of the day, those results of the models are brought back, and then you can go forward and surface that information to whoever you need to make a decision on that information. So as all of this data starts flowing in and the machine learning is running, all those resource types, all those FHIR entities, they're going to have timestamps associated with them. And the models, when they run, you'll also have data associated with all of those models. You can start to build this chronological view of medical events for your patient population. And it gets really interesting because we hear examples from customers where you may go into for like an annual checkup, and the data within the EHR that's captured during that interaction might say one thing, but you may say things to the clinician in the context of that encounter that maybe you're a complaint that doesn't ever actually get filed into the AHR. And those that pattern, that history, you can start to hopefully build this better view of your patient population to hopefully lead to better clinical decisions in the long run. Now, I mentioned that ability to kind of streamline and structure on data, on FHIR. And so with Amazon HealthLake, now that you have all of your data in AWS, you can actually start to streamline whether you're building like a model in SageMaker, for example, because now all that data is in the same format. Or if you're building dashboards or leveraging third-party applications, like SnapLogic, for example, and I think Rich is actually going to show a little example later and talk about how they can get data from HealthLake elsewhere as well. So a lot of options on how you choose to approach building your solutions. But the key thing to understand here, though, is that it's going to scale for you. So the idea behind HealthLake really is to remove that heavy lifting required to build a FHIR data store that's fully searchable with built-in machine learning that can then be used in the rest of your AWS account. And because everything is in FHIR, we're hearing from a lot of customers that because of the 21st Century Cures Act, they're starting to say, well, look, we have all of this data now that's being we have all this data in FHIR that is being mandated. We want to do some machine learning on it. We also have all this other data that's not in FHIR that we want to do machine learning on. How can we bring it all together? And so that's the great thing about HealthLake and FHIR, is that by standardizing on that common data model, you can really start to serve the needs of not just your patients or your clinicians, but really other third parties or your health plans. And it really just makes it easier to start exchanging information and driving towards better outcomes. So this is this kind of is the high level view that really brings it all together. And here at the very beginning, you think about that structured and unstructured data, and there's that big asterisk there that says, use an Amazon HealthLake connector partner to convert data to FHIR. And that is what SnapLogic, if you think here in this presentation, this first arrow, we have partners that have built solutions to get data into HealthLake specifically. And so one of those solutions that will be shown here in a minute by SnapLogic, but think about there being a box around here. This would be your AWS account. And the data coming into HealthLake, again, has to be in FHIR v4, but on the front end, HealthLake does support the create, update, and delete of Fire resources. You can also do a bulk import from Amazon S3 if you have data in Fire, like in an S3 bucket. But as soon as it comes into HealthLake, again, we take care of all that structuring, the tagging, the indexing, all that stuff. And we also have that medical natural language processing built in and make it fully searchable. So then on the back side of this, you can search everything, you can read it, you can export it. If you want to use this information in HealthLake to feed maybe a much larger data lake you're building on AWS, or can be a part of your data lake, you have the ability to bring that data from HealthLake into S3. And again, we have Amazon SageMaker and QuickSight over here on the right, but I'll actually be showing a demo here in a second where I use Athena to write SQL queries against my data that comes from Amazon HealthLake. So, and then any other third-party applications that support Fire. But yeah, the other key thing, a common question I get asked about on the slide is, well, what does this mean in terms of my architecture? Does this mean I can do real-time data? Does it mean, is it bulk? And the truth is, like, it's kind of however you choose to use it. If you have a real-time HL7 feed flying across the wire and you convert that to Fire and you drop it into HealthLake, then you have essentially like a real-time view of your clinical data with that AI ML running on it, on that unstructured data. We have other customers that are using HealthLake as a means really to kind of, as sort of a separate pipeline within their larger data lake, where they are, in some cases, actually splitting messages, where some things are going to go in one part of the data lake and others they route through HealthLake to take advantage of that built-in machine learning to really kind of streamline some of their AI ML work and standardize. Now, when it comes to use cases, it's interesting because these are the top 3 use cases we've heard, but I keep hearing from customers and working with some partners that are building solutions on or around HealthLake that don't exactly align with these. So obviously, though, with population health, that is the number one thing. Like, if you go look at some of the public use cases we have out there that we can speak about publicly, Rush Medical is doing work with their COVID patients with Amazon HealthLake and trying to now analyze the health trends across that population. But also when it comes to improving that quality of care, we've heard from payers also really interested about closing gaps in care. The ability to optimize your operations is another key driver. But I've talked, like I said, I'm talking to some customers that are looking to build like a clinical trials platform on HealthLake. Really, what's really interesting about Fire is that it used to traditionally be associated more with providers, but now you're starting to see this merging of, because of the 21st Century Cures Act, a lot more data is kind of coming along that's going to be in Fire. And you have all these other companies that are starting to realize that, this makes things a lot easier. If I need demographic information about somebody, I no longer have to sit there and go define a database to say, first name is going to be, 30 characters and last name is going to be 30 characters and define that schema. You just align to that common data model. It makes it a lot easier to get started quickly to go build new solutions. And then I mentioned those purpose-built HIPAA-eligible services. We have more than 130. These are some of the key ones that we like to call out because I already talked about Comprehend Medical, Transcribe Medical, and HealthLake. But we also have, for example, Amazon Textract to extract text from documents. And I talked about Recognition earlier for medical image and video analysis. So I encourage you to go out and look on our website at our at all of our different services that we have. And that one key thing with all these, though, again, that kind of top layer of the AI/ML stack, is that there's nothing for you to host. There's no servers you have to manage. These are all things that Amazon takes care of for you, that are fully HIPAA eligible, that essentially you just use it and you pay for what you use. the documentation for HealthLake and getting started, like once you have your data in HealthLake, we have a ton of documentation out there, some webinars and quick starts, things that you can use to get started quickly. We have some self-paced workshops as well. And I'll show you here in a second how easy it is to even, just get some fake data going before you start flowing real data into it. So I'm going to, in the last 10 minutes, I'm going to hop over into the AWS console. So I have HealthLake here that I've found within the console. And so I've already created one data store here, but if I wanted to come create another one, it's very easy to get started. So you would give it a name. If you don't have data in Fire yet, let's say you're working with SnapLogic and you say, hey, we want to start using this HealthLake thing. And but you want to get something stood up just initially so your teams can kind of get their hands on HealthLake while you're getting the data flowing. You can preload it with synthetic data. And that'll just it's going to load just a very bare minimum number of resources, but you can get out there and kind of experiment quickly. But then you can completely control the encryption. So you can either use an AWS KMS key, or you can bring your own. And then you just say you want to create the data store. And then once you do that, within about 10 to 15 minutes, all the resources are spun up. And you'll have then an Amazon HealthLake that looks like this. Now, when I come into HealthLake, you'll notice here it's all just API driven. So we have the endpoint here. This is my HealthLake endpoint. And you'll notice also, because like one of the common questions we get is, well, is it just FireWire4? What about DSTU2 or 3? We don't do DSTU2 or 3. We're not going back, but we are supporting forward. So all future versions of Fire, we're going to continue to support. Now, in the console, you can also use Postman if you like using Postman, but if you're familiar with it, with Postman, we've actually kind of built a similar kind of thing where you can come in here and run basic CRUD operations against your HealthLake endpoint. So for example, if I wanted to look at, just do a basic search on some patient, this is of course all synthetic data. These are not real patients that we're looking at here. But here's here's some of my Fire data that has come back related to my patient here. The key thing I wanted to show though was that built-in NLP. So if I search for a document reference, so I'm just pulling back some of the first document references that are here. You'll notice that we have, so it's related to this particular patient for this org. We have, this is the encounter here. So this is a history, this is a note, and here is the actual note. So if I were to decode this, it would just look like a standard clinical note. And but you'll notice it's base 64 encoded. So within the content attachment data section, we have the base 64 encoded note, and everything above line 87 is what I initially brought into Amazon HealthLake. As soon as it hit, Comprehend Medical ran. And then you'll see an extension here where HealthLake has added a whole bunch of additional lines of JSON. I apologize for scrolling through all the JSON, but you'll see here that it found like palpitations within that note. And here's the ICD-10 concept code R00.2 for that. It was 77% confident. So we have these arrays of JSON in here that HealthLake has added automatically. And if I were to continue scrolling, I'm not going to, but you would see like RX norm information and I said I wasn't going to do it, but I'll keep coming down here. So you'll notice, so we have a medical condition here. So you get the idea. all this information is in HealthLake. So now the question is, well, how can I use this information, maybe join it to other data that I have and maybe in my data lake? And so in this example here, what I've done is I've actually taken HealthLake, I've exported it to Amazon S3, and then I have other data in S3, some synthetic COVID data that I've kind of joined it with, and I've built a glue crawler on HealthLake and other data in my data lake. And what's great about Fire, because Fire is JSON, when you use Amazon Glue to crawl those data models, it automatically understands first name, last name, all that Fire resource layout, and I can now run SQL queries against that information. So in its most simplest example here, if I wanted to look at like my heart rate for a particular, for my patients here, and I'm just running basic SQL queries against my HealthLake data, now I have my patients and I have their heart rate that was coming in, that was brought into HealthLake. But if I want to get a little fancier, I want to take advantage of that built-in NLP. In this example here, I'm running a SQL query where I'm actually pulling out the insights that we provided in the extension. And what I'm doing is I'm actually looking at the like ICD-10 codes, and I'm going to pull out the various, so here's the ICD-10 codes, the description, and the confidence score. So the example here being is that out of my whole patient population, this was previously just locked away in that unstructured data. And now I'm able to start writing queries against it to say, well, let's start looking at what our patient population has, and you can join across other data sets as well. So as you build out your data lake on AWS, in this example here, I have my synthetic patients that I've created that had COVID. They were in a CSV file I loaded into S3, built a glue crawler, and then you'll notice here I'm joining, I just happen to be joining on their social security number, but I'm just pulling back their allergies. And so if I were to run this query, it's a very simple example, but the idea here is I'm combining the real-time allergies flowing into HealthLake along with just kind of this static data that it sits in this kind of random CSV file as part of my data lake that I've loaded also. So it starts to become tremendously powerful when you can start to take all that data and bring it together. And if I wanted to, I could take this information and I could feed it into SageMaker, and I could build models from that. Or if I wanted to build dashboards from this data, I could do that as well. We do have on our website, I believe over here on the resources slide, we do have from this HealthLake page, we have several blog posts as well that walk you through how to go about like if you wanted to, I think we have one that does a sepsis model, and there's a population health dashboard example out there as well that we created. So the last thing I want to mention before I kick over to SnapLogic is that if you have any questions at any point, please feel free to reach out to your AWS team. That's what we're here for. There are folks like myself at AWS who specialize in healthcare, and we're here to help. And if you start using HealthLake, and as I mentioned earlier, 90% of what we build is based on what our customers ask us to build. Please, like if you see something where you realize there's something in HealthLake that you would like added or changed to accommodate a particular use case you have in mind, reach out to your AWS account team. Let us know. And so with that, I want to go ahead and hand it over to Teresa, or I'm sorry, to Rich from SnapLogic, and I'm sure Rich is I'm sure he's getting set up right now. But Rich is going to demo what they've built to help customers get data from a variety of data sources, get that converted into that FireWire for data structure that HealthLake needs to get it in and load HealthLake for you. And then as well as getting data from there and getting it elsewhere.